Hello friends, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Kat and I make videos about books, writing and other random things living rent-free in my neurodivergent brain. Today we are doing the thoughtful words tag, and I was tagged by Kelly at Books I'm Not Reading to do this, and it was originally created by Sandy Says Read. So the first thoughtful word is catalyst. The catalyst or inciting incident gets the story moving. What's a book with a great hook or a memorable beginning? For me, it's the beginning of The Mirror Visitor by Christelle Davos. It's a French fantasy series that has been translated in English, and the first book is just absolutely marvelous. I absolutely adore it. We start by seeing a nose poke out of a mirror, and then it's followed by a pair of glasses and then a full person, and that's how we meet Ophelia, the main character of this book, when she enters into a museum where she works, which has its own kind of personality as well, like it's almost a living building. And so Ophelia is a mirror traveler, and so she's able to move from places to places through mirrors, and that's how we start this novel, which I highly recommend. Next is foundation. A foundational or fundamental book could be a children's story or YA novel from your past. What's a book that you consider the introduction to your reading life? From when I was a kid, there are quite a few different books. There is the Babysitter's Club series or the Black Stallion series as well, which were books that I really enjoyed when I was a kid, and I remember going to the bookshop with my parents and like picking the next one and deciding, trying to negotiate how many I could buy. And there is also a children's book from when I was very little, but I don't know what it's called in English. Let's see if I can find it. I did. So this is like a very, very old edition. It's all yellowed and a bit fragile, but it's basically the story of this young chicken who is not happy with how he looks and is quite jealous of other attributes other animals have. And so he asks Mother Nature to give him the different cool things other animals have. And so he ends up turning into a platypus, which is one of my favorite animals. Is not my favorite animal of all time. I think platypuses are so cool. Platypuses or platypi? I think there's like a real plural term, but yeah. It's just a lovely children's story from when I was a tiny kid, and I will see if I can find any translation information about it. So that was for my childhood, but I have a book that kind of introduced me to a second reading life, and that's The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime by Mark Haddon. It's funny because I very easily forget authors' names, but this one is kind of stuck in my brain, and it's the first novel that I read in English for pleasure and that I was not forced to read at school or anything like that. And I don't think we even read full books at school, like we just read excerpts. So it's like the first complete book I read in English, and I remember exactly when I got it. I was with a friend from uni who was reading in English, and I was very impressed by that. And we were in the bookshop and she was talking to me about it, and I was seeing her picking books in English, and that inspired me to do the same and to give it a go. And so I picked that one, and it was actually a perfect book for me to start reading in English because it was very entertaining, but at the same time, because of the narrator is a kid, the style was quite easy, like the language was very accessible, and so it helped first that I understood what was going on, that it was at that level, and also that kind of helped build my confidence and then to continue reading in English. And I think that element really opened a different life for me in a way, because I started again gaining confidence in English and reading more in English and really developing my skills. And I can't really say how much of what happened next in my life has been influenced by this book specifically, but I became a translator. I think that's much later, but I don't know if I would have had the confidence to do that if I hadn't started reading English at some point. It just opened a whole new world for me, I think. And so I'm incredibly grateful and indebted to that book and to the friend who introduced me to reading in English, because I hadn't thought about it before. Next is nostalgia. We often enjoy those things that bring back memories. What's a book that inspired you to text an old friend or look up an old TV show online or write a note to a past teacher? Well, again, The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime by Mark Haddon. When I was preparing for this tag, kind of thinking about my answers, I thought about this book, and again, I remember that friend who introduced me to the idea of reading in English, and so I sent her a message on Facebook, and I think it's been 14 years since we've been in touch, so it's been a very long time, and she responded and we've just like started speaking again. So it's just been really lovely, and yeah, I'm excited, and I'm glad to be in touch with her again. Next is quick. In today's world, we're often in a hurry. What's a short story or novella you've enjoyed that made such an impression on you that you can't get it out of your mind? So I couldn't really think of any short stories or novella, and probably because I don't read many of those, but for the prompt of quick, like I thought of this tiny book, which is By Heart by Tiago Rodriguez. It's actually a play, and it's about Tiago's grandmother who is losing her eyesight, and she asks him to find her a book to learn by heart so that she can keep reading in a way when she's gonna lose her eyesight. It was very poignant, it's very beautiful and moving. I saw the play in the theaters and I really enjoyed it. I don't know if it's available in English though. I think it's initially translated from Portuguese, but again, I will check if there is an English translation available. Nature. We can't be always consumed by technology. What's a book, fiction or non-fiction, that inspired you with its message or characters to go outside? So I can recommend Grounding by Lula Elander for this. It's a memoir about a very difficult time in her life when she had recently lost her mom, and she was also on the verge of possibly losing her home, and she decided to still invest in the garden, and so to plant flowers that she might not see bloom later in that year. It's beautifully written and it reminds us of the beauty of gardens. It made me want to go outside and tend to my own garden. Also, another thing for this prompt is not a book, but I keep talking about this, but I recently purchased a hammock chair that I hang under one of my trees, and I love to read in there. So it's the one thing that encourages me to go outside and just read in the fresh air and listening to the songbirds and the wind in the leaves and all of that. So not a book, but another thing that encouraged me to go outside related to books. Melancholy. Having a sense of melancholy is not necessarily a bad thing. It can give one time to relax and reflect. What's a book that broke your heart and made you think deep thoughts? Todas las personas que fui by Alfonso Casas. Unfortunately, it's not available in English at the moment, I think, but his other books have been translated into English, so I think hopefully this one will too. I think it encapsulates perfectly that bittersweet feeling that melancholy is, because it touches on our relationship with the previous versions of ourselves. It's kind of a fictionalized memoir in a way. It shows Alfonso at a time when he's dissatisfied with his life and he's not feeling good, he's a bit depressed, and the book asks the question of, can we forgive our previous self for bringing us to that point that we're not happy with, but also can we let our previous self or the previous versions of ourselves forgive us for maybe not living up to the expectations that we had of ourselves and the things we hope to accomplish. It's a beautiful, beautiful book. It's a book that really moved me and that I really enjoyed. And so if you read Spanish, I would highly recommend it. And otherwise, I really hope it gets translated into English very soon. Penultimate. What's your favorite or best second to last book in a trilogy or series? Why was it so good? The Subtle Knife by Philip Pullman. It's the second book in his Dark Materials trilogy, and the whole series is absolutely fantastic. But this second book really expands on this fantastic world, or worlds, should I say, and it just makes the story bigger and more exciting. We're introduced to new characters. It takes what was very good about the first one, but just like expands it tremendously. So fantastic, fantastic book. Restorative. We can all use something that brings us back to reading. What's a book, fiction or non-fiction, that pulled you out of a reading slump or lit a fire in your soul? So for me, that's The Mirror Visitor by Christelle Dabos, and also Margaret Rogerson's books, in particular Sorcery of Thorns. Those two books, or those two authors' work, really got me back into my love of reading and reconciled me with my love of fantasy, which I had really forgotten about. I thought I didn't enjoy fantasy when I very much did, and very much still do. It had been a very long time since I had binge read books, and so I binge read the whole series and also devoured Margaret Rogerson's books. So those two were just fantastic and got me, again, really excited about fantasy, and now I'm writing a freaking fantasy novel myself, so they really did something to me. And then there is a bonus prompt, which is gift. What's a book you would give to a dear friend as a birthday or Christmas present, and why? I find this question very difficult to answer, and I would need to know the recipient of the gift, because if you're making a gift, you're not offering something you want, you're offering something that is supposed to please the person you're gifting it to. So I would need to understand a little bit about their taste and what they're interested in, so that I can pick a book that they're gonna enjoy, which might not be something that I would enjoy. So yeah, I'm kind of dodging that question, but that's my answer. It depends. All right, now it's time to tag some people. So I'm tagging Ellen from the Ellen Made Book Club channel, Rochelle from Good Morning Dreamer, Chelsea from Libraries and Lattes, Mary from the Honey Reads, Mariandrea from Books and Bocadillos, and finally Asha from Asha Neila Reads. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye bye.